A quick like and subscribe really helps our channel grow and allows us to bring you even more amazing content. Thank you for your support.
Hey everyone, it's Ruth. I never thought I'd find myself sharing my story online, but here I am, spilling my heart out in hopes that maybe someone out there can relate or find solace in my words. It feels like I'm pouring my soul into a void, but it's a necessary step in my journey, one that has taken me from the depths of despair to a place where I can finally reclaim my power. I'm sitting here in my dimly lit living room, the soft glow of my laptop illuminating the pages of my story. Outside my window, the crisp autumn leaves are falling, mirroring the changes that have occurred in my life over the past few months. The air is cool, a stark contrast to the fiery anger that once consumed me. Let me take you back to a few months ago when I was living in a small town that felt like a prison, a place where everyone knew everyone's business. I had always been the quiet girl, the one who blended into the background. My name was seldom mentioned in conversations, and when it was typically met with dismissive nods. But I think that's what made it all the more shocking when the chaos began. The key players in this story are two people, my so-called best friend, Lila, and my childhood crush, Jake. Lila and I had been inseparable ever since we were kids, but I now see our friendship through different eyes. She was my confidant, the one person I always thought I could count on. But betrayal has a way of stripping away the veneer of trust, and Lila's actions turned me into a different person entirely. Jake, on the other hand, was the boy every girl in town swooned over. With his tousled hair, warm smile, and those deep-set brown eyes, he was the embodiment of everything I dreamed of. We had shared a few sweet moments at school, stolen glances that had left my heart racing. But I never thought he noticed me the way I noticed him, until Lila decided to pull the rug out from under me. One Friday night, while the cool breeze whistled through the trees, I hosted a small gathering at my place, hoping to give Lila and Jake a chance to connect. I was excited, maybe even a little naive, thinking that my growing friendship with Jake would blossom into something more. But what I didn't know was that Lila had other plans. In a blindside I never saw coming, she chose that very night to reveal her own feelings for him. Over the laughter and music, in front of our friends, she leaned in and kissed him, leaving me frozen in disbelief. I could feel the warmth drain from my cheeks, my heart racing as the weight of betrayal settled over me like an unwelcome blanket. Lila had known how I felt, yet she chose to throw it all away. The cheers from our friends erupted in the background, but all I could hear was the deafening silence of my own heartbreak. I was exposed, vulnerable, and utterly lost. But what neither Lila nor Jake understood was that I wasn't going to lie down and accept this betrayal. I didn't have a grand plan formulated in that moment, but deep down, something ignited, a flicker of strength buried beneath my pain. I was done being the girl who didn't fight back. It was time to reclaim what was mine, to rewrite my story. So as I sit here, ready to share the twists and turns that led me to my ultimate revenge, I hope you stick around. Because trust me, you're about to witness a transformation that you won't forget. Don't think I can fight back. Watch this. In the days following that fateful night, I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. Every time I walked through the hallways at school, I was met with snickers and whispers. It was as if I was suddenly a character in a tragic play, with Lila and Jake playing the leads while I was relegated to the background, a shadow of the person I used to be. I could almost see the headlines in my mind: Ruth the fool, best friend betrayed. How could Lila do that to me? I replayed that moment over and over in my head, her lips pressed against Jake's, the way her eyes sparkled with mischief, as if she had just pulled off the ultimate prank. I had always known her to be competitive, but this felt like stabbing me in the back while I was busy celebrating her victories. I tried to reach out to her, to make sense of it all, but every text was met with dry responses that sounded like she was reading from a script. The warmth that once colored our friendship had turned to ice. I remember one afternoon sitting across from her in our favorite cafe, my heart pounding like a drum as I finally mustered the courage to confront her. "Why, Lila? Why would you do that to me?" I whispered, my voice cracking under the strain of unspent tears. She looked up, a blend of confusion and indifference on her face. "You were never really in the running, Ruth. I thought you knew," she shrugged, as if dismissing the importance of everything we had built together. Those words cut deeper than any knife ever could. It was a betrayal fueled not just by a moment of passion, but by a chilling disregard for our history. I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces, each shard a reminder of the memories we had shared. My best friend had chosen to throw away years of trust for a fleeting moment of infatuation. She didn't just take Jake from me, she took away the one person I thought I could rely on. As for Jake, he didn't even bother to reach out to me. Instead, he seemed to bask in the attention now showered on him, laughing it off as if it was just another day in high school. Everyone saw him as the hero of this ridiculous story, the guy who had a choice between two girls and had chosen the one who was more willing to wear her heart on her sleeve. But what they didn't see was the hurt I felt, the way my heart twisted painfully whenever I spotted them together, his hand resting casually on the small of her back, her laughter ringing out like sweet music in my ears, while I stood frozen in the background, a mere spectator in my own life. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself spiraling into a dark abyss of anger and betrayal. I was enraged, not just at them, but at myself for letting it happen. I felt small and powerless, trapped in a world where the very people I loved had conspired against me. "Don't think I can fight back," echoed in my mind, taunting me, igniting a flame of determination I never knew I had. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly, I began to plot my revenge. I refocused my energy, channeling my pain into a plan that didn't involve petty revenge or malicious intent, but rather a journey of self-discovery. I started working out, pushing my body beyond its limits, and with it, I felt my confidence swell. I enrolled in a martial arts class, learning to harness my anger into strength. With each kick and punch, I felt the weight of betrayal lift just a little, replaced with a newfound resolve. But I knew that for my revenge to truly mean something, it needed to be about more than just reclaiming Jake or getting back at Lila. It had to be about reclaiming myself. I made it my mission to show them, and myself, that I was not the quiet girl who would simply fade away. The transformation was more than physical, it was an awakening of the spirit buried beneath layers of doubt and hurt. With each passing day, I grew stronger, both inside and out. I began to redefine who I was, shedding the insecurities that had once held me captive. The flicker of strength that had ignited that night began to blaze, and I realized that my best revenge would be to rewrite the narrative. I would no longer be a passive character in this story. I would take center stage. And so, with a heart full of fire and a head filled with resolve, I prepared to unleash the new me on an unsuspecting world, ready to show everyone that they were wrong about me. The time for passive acceptance was over, this was just the beginning. I was ready to reclaim my story. As the weeks turned into months, I felt the weight of my betrayal shift from a crushing burden to a simmering blaze of motivation, but just when I thought things might begin to level out, life threw unexpected challenges my way. It's as if the universe conspired against me, adding fuel to the fire of my resentment. The first blow came late one Friday evening, just as I was leaving martial arts class, adrenaline still pulsing through my veins. My phone buzzed incessantly in my pocket, and when I finally checked it, I was met with a barrage of messages from my classmates. A group chat titled "The Betrayed" had been created, an all too appropriate name for my situation, and it was filled with memes about me, images of me from my awkward phases, and jokes about how I was too unremarkable to be noticed by Jake in the first place. I felt my stomach drop as I scrolled through the comments, each one cutting deeper than the last. I tried to laugh it off, to show them that their words didn't bother me, but inside, I was a storm of emotions. I felt exposed, publicly ridiculed, and humiliated. They were all too happy to put me on display, as if I were a sideshow attraction. I could almost hear Lila's laughter ringing in the back of my mind, feeding off the chaos and pain she had sown. The realization that my entire friend group had turned against me, rallied around Lila's betrayal like moths to a flame, sent me spiraling once again. So, I did what any girl would do when faced with overwhelming mockery, I fought back. Not in the way they expected, but with silence. I deleted the app, turning off the notifications and shutting out their mockery. Instead, I focused on my training, pouring my heart into every punch, every kick, every drill. I began to develop a fierce determination, channeling my pain into something constructive. But it didn't stop there. It was during a weekend retreat for our martial arts class that things escalated further. A day filled with sweat and dedication turned into a nightmare when I overheard a conversation that would forever change my perception of Jake. I found myself sitting on a bench outside, catching my breath after an intense sparring session, when I overheard Jake and Lila talking, unaware of my presence. "I can't believe she thought she had any chance with you," Lila laughed, her voice dripping with condescension. "She really thought you'd choose her over me?" Jake's laughter rang out, and in that moment, something inside me shattered. The boy I had once idolized was reduced to a caricature of arrogance. "I mean, come on. She's just Ruth. It's not like she's ever stood out in any real way," he replied, his tone flippant and dismissive. "I didn't even know she liked me until the party." It was kind of sad, honestly. Those words sliced through me, igniting a fire of fury within my chest. Suddenly, it was clearer than ever that they were a toxic duo, two peas in a pod, thriving off their shared cruelty. I felt the rage bubbling up, and before I could stop myself, I stood up and confronted them. "Is that really what you think of me?" I spat, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. They turned to me, surprise etched on their faces. I felt powerful, a sudden surge of adrenaline coursing through my veins, but the moment was fleeting as Jake smirked and shrugged, brushing off my presence as if I were a mere annoyance in his shadow. "What do you want, Ruth?" "I was just saying the truth," he replied, his arrogance palpable. Lila stood beside him, a smirk playing on her lips, clearly enjoying the confrontation. At that moment, I realized something crucial. I had to shift my approach. I couldn't let them get away with treating me like this. I had transformed into someone who wouldn't just sit back and take it. I was ready to fight back. As I walked away from that confrontation, I felt a new determination settle over me like a protective cloak. I would no longer stay silent or allow them to dictate my worth. This wasn't just about revenge, this was about reclaiming my life and my self-esteem. But the escalation didn't stop there. The next week, as I walked through the school halls, I noticed that my classmates had upped the ante. Lila and Jake had orchestrated an event that would seal my fate, a school carnival, an intimate gathering of everyone who had once been my friends, with me as the uninvited guest. They posted about it all over social media, making it was a Friday afternoon when I stumbled upon the fateful invitation, the final straw that snapped the last thread of patience I had left. I was idly scrolling through my socials, trying to distract myself from the tide of rage that had been building up inside me. My heart raced as I saw it, a glossy flyer plastered across various platforms, featuring bright colors and cute doodles that seemed to mock me. "Join us for the most epic night of fun at the annual school carnival, party popper emoji, sparkles emoji." The names beneath the announcement were all too familiar, Jake and Lila. My stomach twisted into knots as I read through the details. They'd concocted a whole night of festivities, complete with games, a dance floor, and even a dunk tank where everyone was eagerly encouraged to throw balls at their ex-friend's target. The laughter and glee of the event felt like a personal insult, a celebration of my humiliation. But something inside me began to shift. I could feel the simmering anger bubbling to the surface, morphing into something else, a fierce resolve that I had never experienced before. I clenched my fists, the intensity of my emotions igniting a flame within me that demanded to be unleashed. This was the turning point. I realized that I had to take back my narrative, not just for the sake of revenge, but for my own self-worth. This carnival wasn't just a party, it was a direct challenge to my existence, to my very identity. It was a clear signal that Lila and Jake thought they could dictate the terms of my life, casting me aside while they played the leading roles in the story of our high school. As the hours passed, a plan began to form in my mind, and the details unfolded with surprising clarity. I decided I wouldn't just show up to the carnival, I would make sure that they, and everyone else, saw me. I wanted my presence to reverberate like a thunderclap, a wake-up call to everyone who had written me off. I would no longer be Ruth the invisible girl, this time, I would step into the limelight, unafraid and unwavering. The transformation I had been cultivating in my martial arts class would now serve a dual purpose. I enlisted my fellow classmates who had been supportive during my journey, those who recognized my struggle instead of reveling in it. We agreed to turn the carnival into a showcase of strength and resilience. As I shared my plan, they lit up with enthusiasm, all eager to rally behind me. The night of the carnival arrived, and my heart pounded with a mix of excitement and nerves. I donned a sleek black outfit that exuded confidence and a subtle hint of defiance, a stark contrast to the pastels and playful attire that others wore. As I walked through the entrance, the sounds of laughter and chatter enveloped me, but I was no longer the girl hiding in the background. I was here to fight back. I made my way to the center of the carnival, where games and booths were set up, but instead of feeling small and unnecessary, I felt empowered, anchored by the support of my newfound friends. I watched Lila and Jake from a distance as they reveled in their spotlight, completely unaware of the storm brewing on the other side of the fairgrounds. In a bold move, I approached the dunk tank, the air crackling with anticipation. I could see the crowd laughing and pointing, waiting to see who would take the plunge next. The moment felt electric, charged with the energy of what was to come. I climbed onto the platform, heart racing but resolute. The crowd hushed, curiosity piqued as I grinned at the gathered classmates. "Hey everyone!" I called out, my voice steady and clear. I just wanted to say a few words. The murmurs of disbelief rippled through the crowd as I introduced myself, my heart soaring as I felt their eyes on me, not with derision this time, but with genuine interest. "Yeah, I'm Ruth. You might remember me as the girl in the background. I just want to show you all that I'm done hiding." I felt a surge of adrenaline as I aimed a pointed glance at Lila and Jake, who stood frozen in shock. I'm done letting anyone dictate my worth or my happiness. I might not have been the loudest voice in the room before, but tonight, I'm here to remind you all that I am more than a punchline, more than a shadow. I could see the flicker of surprise in Jake's eyes, a realization dawning on him that this was not going to go as he had planned. With a nod to my friends, who stood behind me with smiles of encouragement, I threw balls at the dunk tank target with all my might. The crowd erupted into cheers as the final ball struck the target and the splash echoed through the air. I felt exhilarated. But this was just the beginning. My mind raced with ideas, crafting a detailed revenge plan that was both clever and satisfying. It was time to turn the tables. 1. The carnival takeover. I had already made my entrance at the carnival dramatic, but now it was time to take full control of the event. I contacted the organizers ahead of time, leveraging my connections with the supportive classmates I had gathered. I suggested a surprise martial arts demonstration during the event's peak time, a showcase of strength that would draw in crowds and keep eyes off Lila and Jake. They agreed, excited to see what I had in store. 2. A training montage. In the weeks leading up to the carnival, my friends and I worked hard to prepare for the demonstration. We trained relentlessly, perfecting a series of choreographed moves that showcased not only our skills but also our unity. It became a powerful symbol of resilience and strength, turning my personal pain into a collective celebration of friendship and support. I wanted Jake and Lila to see just how much I had grown, but even more, I wanted them to realize that I would no longer be a pawn in their game. 3. The big reveal. On the night of the carnival, right after my dunk tank moment, I invited everyone to gather around for the martial arts demonstration. I could see Lila and Jake trying to brush it off as irrelevant, but I sensed their anxiety as I took center stage with my team. As the performance began, I could feel the crowd's excitement build. Each kick and punch was infused with the emotions I had bottled up for months. I glanced over at Lila and Jake during the performance, witnessing their expressions shift from smugness to discomfort. 4. The ultimate showdown. As the finale approached, I planned a special segment, one that would directly involve Lila and Jake. I called them out, feigning innocence with a bright smile. "Hey, Lila, Jake. Want to join us for a friendly match? It'll be fun." The crowd buzzed with anticipation as they glanced at each other, unsure of how to respond. They couldn't back down without looking cowardly, so they reluctantly agreed. 5. The match. The showdown began with a mock sparring session. I faced off against Lila first, all while maintaining a light-hearted banter that made the crowd laugh. I danced around her effortlessly, executing moves I had practiced relentlessly. Each block and dodge was laced with purpose. I wanted her to feel the intensity of her betrayal. I could see the panic in her eyes as I flipped over her, landing gracefully. The crowd erupted with cheers, and in that moment, I felt invincible. 6. The final punch. As I continued the mock match, it was time for the grand reveal. I had been orchestrating this all along. I had a friend record the entire demonstration, especially the moments that highlighted my transformation and strength. After wrapping up the match with a playful bow to Lila, I stepped back, catching my breath. "Thanks for the warm-up, Lila," I exclaimed, my voice ringing out. "But now, I think I'll show everyone something a little different." I motioned to my friend who held the camera. "Let's play back some highlights from my transformation over the past few months." The screen lit up with footage of my training sessions, the sweat, the tears, and the countless hours spent finding my strength and reclaiming my confidence. I watched as the crowd leaned in, captivated by the story unfolding before them. 7. The revelation. I turned to Jake, who stood awkwardly on the sidelines, unsure of how to react. "This is what you missed, Jake. I've fought back, not because of you, but for myself. I am not just Ruth, I am resilient, powerful, and I will not be defined by a kiss or a betrayal." The crowd erupted into applause, and I could feel the energy of support washing over me. As the footage ended, the crowd roared with approval. I could see the tension in Lila's expression, the realization that I had transformed from the background to the foreground of our shared story. I had not only reclaimed my power, but I had also stripped them of theirs, leaving them exposed and vulnerable. 8. The aftermath. After the carnival concluded, I received a flood of messages from my classmates. They praised my transformation, and those who had once laughed at my expense now expressed admiration for my strength. My phone buzzed nonstop, filled with requests to join my martial arts class, eager to learn from the girl they had once overlooked. Lila and Jake, however, as the cheers settled and the lights of the carnival began to twinkle like stars, my heart raced with adrenaline. The crowd was still abuzz from my demonstration, the energy electric and charged with excitement. It was time to put the final pieces of my revenge into motion, a cathartic culmination of everything I had worked towards. I spotted Lila and Jake huddled together at the edge of the festival grounds, their expressions a mixture of confusion and fear, as if they were suddenly grappling with the fact that I had become the unexpected protagonist in a story they thought they controlled. The power dynamics had shifted, and now it was my turn to seize the moment. "Hey, everyone," I shouted, my voice booming over the lingering echoes of laughter. I had everyone's attention, a spotlight on me that felt both exhilarating and daunting. "Thank you for joining me tonight. Now, I want to invite my dear friends Lila and Jake back to the center stage for a little something special." The shocked gasps from the crowd felt like a wave crashing over us, and I could see Lila's face turn pale as I beckoned them forth like a matador calling the bull. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind countless times, and now, it was finally coming to fruition. The collective breaths of my classmates hung in the air as their eyes darted between me and the two startled figures. "Come on, you can't back out now," I teased, feeling the rush of confidence surging through me. After all, we wouldn't want this night to end without a proper showdown, would we? Lila hesitated, glancing at Jake for reassurance, but I could see the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. She wore her bravado like a thin veil now, fraying at the edges. The laughter had died down, leaving an uncomfortable silence in its wake. Jake's usual swagger deflated, and I sensed the tension between us crackling like static electricity. With a dramatic flourish, I motioned for my friends to join me on the makeshift stage we had set up in front of the carnival games. "Let's show everyone what real teamwork looks like," I said with a determined smile. The crowd roared back to life, their excitement palpable. I felt like a gladiator before the Colosseum audience, and with every cheer, my resolve solidified. Lila and Jake reluctantly joined me, stepping into the spotlight as I put on my best show of confidence. Tonight is not just about games and laughter, it's about standing up for what's right. It's about recognizing that betrayal doesn't define us, and instead, it's our response that shapes our paths. As I spoke, I could see their discomfort growing. I had them right where I wanted them, and the crowd was rapt with attention, just waiting for the unexpected twist to unfold. So, in the spirit of fun and friendship, I continued, "How about a little friendly competition?" The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, eagerly anticipating the rivalry brewing before them. I felt the thrill of anticipation coursing through me. This was my moment, the ultimate poetic justice that would not only showcase my growth but also hold Lila and Jake accountable for their actions. Let's go with a series of challenges, I proposed, grinning as I prepared to unleash my plan. I challenge you both to a series of games, a friendly spar, a dunk tank rotation, and finally, a game of knowledge where we all get to ask questions about our history together. Lila shot me a look filled with disbelief, her bravado waning. I could almost hear her thoughts racing. She never expected this. Jake's default smirk had faded, replaced with a furrowed brow that hinted at his dread. You think you can take us down, Ruth? He spat, trying to regain some semblance of control. Absolutely, I replied, my tone unwavering. Let's see whose friendship is stronger. Yours or mine? The crowd rallied behind me, chanting my name, and I could feel the momentum shift squarely in my favor. With every cheer, I felt an exhilarating rush of power. I was no longer the quiet girl, the background shadow. Tonight, I was the main event. The first challenge commenced, a sparring match between Lila and me, a culmination of tension that had been building for months. As we stepped across from each other, I could feel my heart thundering in my chest, but this time, it was not out of fear, it was anticipation. All right, Lila, let's do this. I called out, my voice steady. The crowd fell silent, and in that moment, it was just the two of us. We circled each other, and I could see the flick. The sparring match was a whirlwind of emotion. Every punch, every block, every swift movement was laced with the weight of our shared history. The crowd was on their feet, gasping and cheering as the rivalry unfolded before them. Lila, fueled by the remnants of her bravado, came at me with vigor. I could see the desperation behind her strikes. She was trying to reclaim her status, to prove me wrong. But with each exchange, I felt the dominance shift in my favor. When the match concluded, I stood panting, adrenaline coursing through my veins, while Lila stumbled backward, a mixture of surprise and frustration painted on her flushed cheeks. The cheers of my classmates rang in my ears like a victorious anthem. I had not just won the match, I had won a moment of redemption. Jake stepped in for his turn, a confident smirk plastered on his face. He thought he could outmaneuver me, but as I faced him, I felt a renewed sense of strength. This time, I wasn't just fighting for myself, I was fighting for every girl who had ever felt overlooked and betrayed. With every move, I was reminded of the countless hours I had spent training, of the determination that had helped me rise from the ashes of my heartbreak. I dodged his attempts with ease and delivered swift counterattacks. The crowd roared with each successful strike, and I could see the tide shifting beneath Jake's feet. His bravado was melting away, revealing the uncertainty that lurked beneath. As I finally pinned him down in the final moments, the cheers erupted into a thunderous applause, drowning out the noise of the past, the taunts, the laughter, the betrayal. I had risen to the occasion, but it wasn't just about defeating them, it was about reclaiming my narrative. It was about proving to myself that I was worth more than their fleeting amusement. But the night wasn't over. The dunk tank challenge followed, and as I gestured for Lila to take the first shot, I could see the unease creeping back into her demeanor. I stood before the crowd, bravery emanating from me like a beacon. Take your best shot, Lila. I called out, my voice mixed with both challenge and encouragement. Lila stepped up to throw, but instead of the confidence she had worn earlier, there was uncertainty. She missed, the ball splatting against the side of the tank with a wet smack. Laughter erupted, but I could see the pain behind her eyes. The second throw was no better, the ball ricocheted harmlessly away. As she stepped back, the crowd began to pity her, the laughter morphing into a sympathetic murmur. Looks like you've lost your edge since that kiss. I called out playfully, even as my heart ached for her. I realized in that moment that while I had fought hard for my own redemption, I didn't revel in her humiliation. Instead, I hoped she could learn from this, just as I had. When it was my turn, the stakes felt higher than ever. The crowd grew quiet as I took my place on the platform, Lila and Jake standing back, their expressions a mixture of awe and disbelief. I took a deep breath, focusing on the target. With the first throw, I hit the mark, and the splash went over the audience, eliciting shrieks and laughter. With each consecutive throw, I felt lighter, my heart soaring with every successful hit. Finally, it was Jake's turn. As he took his shots, missing one after another, I could see the realization dawning on his face that he had underestimated me. The cheers continued, but I could sense a shift. The crowd began to question their perception of him, and I knew that this was not just about me reclaiming my power, it was about redefining the narrative that had long been woven around us all. The carnival culminated with the knowledge challenge, where I asked questions about our friendship, our shared memories. I turned the tables, highlighting moments Lila and Jake had never acknowledged, the times I had stood by their side, the times I had supported them. The crowd began to shift in their perspective, realizing that I had been more than just a shadow, I had been a friend, an ally, someone who deserved better. As the night wound down, I stood at the center of the carnival, surrounded by my friends, their faces shining with pride. The atmosphere was electric, filled with the energy of newfound respect, and I could finally breathe again. I had transformed not just my own story but had shifted the narrative of how others perceived me. In the days that followed, I felt as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The messages from classmates continued to pour in, with many expressing admiration for my strength.
Hi, I'm Kimberly. I'm a 28-year-old graphic designer living in the heart of Seattle. The city's skyline always makes me feel small, but that wasn't the only thing dwarfing me during that stormy season of my life. I never thought I'd find myself caught in a web of deception, but there I was, blinded by love, my heart heavy with betrayal. I want to share my story of heartbreak and revenge, but honestly, it's still hard for me to unpack all of it. It feels like I'm pulling at threads of a tapestry I thought had been woven with honesty, only to discover they were nothing but frayed lies. At the center of this story is Ryan, my ex-boyfriend, who at first seemed perfect. He was charming, funny, and had that electric smile that made my heart skip a beat. We met at a local coffee shop, where instead of my usual black coffee, I ordered a caramel macchiato on a whim, a decision that changed the course of my life. Ryan was everything I thought I wanted: ambitious, intelligent, and always ready with a witty quip to lighten the mood. I let my guard down as he skillfully navigated through my trust and insecurities, wrapping me in a cocoon of his affection. Little did I know, I was spiraling deep into a relationship built on manipulation and deceit. Then there was Jessica, my best friend since childhood. We swore we would always have each other's backs, through thick and thin. But as fate would have it, she became a pivotal character in this twisted tale, and not in the way I had ever imagined. I never thought I'd feel the sting of betrayal from her, a friend who knew my deepest secrets and insecurities, yet became unwittingly entangled in a plot that would ultimately break my heart. As I sit here, reminiscing about those harrowing days, I can still feel the weight of the betrayal pressing down on me like a lead blanket. The city lights flicker outside my window, but they pale in comparison to the fire that ignited within me. It's a fire fueled by anger and a desire for justice, a commitment to reclaim my narrative when I learned that the people I trusted the most were nothing but puppeteers in a cruel game. This is not a story of petty grievances or misunderstandings. No, this is a tale of betrayal so deep that it left scars on my heart and unmoored my trust in the very fabric of my life. The first cracks in my seemingly perfect world appeared one evening when I noticed Ryan behaving differently. He would receive late-night messages, his eyes darting away when I entered the room, as if I was a detective who might expose a hidden crime. I chalked it up to stress from work. He was ambitious, after all, always chasing some elusive promotion. But the nagging feeling in my stomach grew heavier with each passing day. Then one fateful Saturday afternoon, while cleaning out the clutter of my apartment, I stumbled upon a small envelope tucked away in a drawer. It was addressed to Ryan but had no return address. My heart raced as I opened it, revealing a neatly folded card that carried the unmistakable scent of perfume. As I read the words scrawled in elegant handwriting, my world shattered. It was a love letter, one that spoke of passion, longing, and secrets. It was from Jessica. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. I had spent countless hours confiding in her about my dreams of a future with Ryan, sharing my fears and insecurities as I built a life with him, only to find out she had been orchestrating a different kind of symphony altogether. A sick feeling of disbelief washed over me. How could she? I felt my heart sink into a bottomless pit of anguish, confusion, and rage. How could my best friend, the one person I thought would never betray me, be complicit in the manipulation that was unraveling before my eyes? As the days rolled into weeks, I confronted Ryan. The look in his eyes shifted from surprise to guilt as he stammered apologies, trying to explain away his betrayal. It was a mistake, he pleaded, it didn't mean anything. But it did mean something. To me, it meant a lifetime of trust was being tossed aside like yesterday's trash. While Ryan was trying to justify his actions, I couldn't shake the image of Jessica's face, the one person I had let into my heart. I realized that the very foundation of our friendship was built on a lie. The sweet memories we shared, the laughter we echoed through the years, it all felt tainted, as if someone had spilled ink on a cherished photograph. Everything I had shared with her now felt raw and exposed, like a wound that refused to heal. In the aftermath of that confrontation, I became a shadow of my former self. I deleted their numbers, I unfollowed them on social media, but there was no magic button to erase the memories. I spiraled into a pit of despair, replaying their betrayal over and over again in my mind. I found myself questioning every interaction, every moment we had shared. Was it all an act? Was I a fool for believing in their love? It wasn't just the emotional toll that drained me, my work began to suffer. I was a graphic designer, someone whose creativity relied on clarity and inspiration, and yet, I found myself staring blankly at my screen, unable to summon a single spark of imagination. My colleagues noticed the change, and whispers of concern, tinged with pity, followed me around the office. "Is everything okay with Kimberly?" they would ask, but all I could muster was a forced smile that felt like a brittle mask. As my world dimmed, Ryan seemed to thrive in the chaos he had created. It was infuriating. He started dating someone new, a girl from his office, someone who resembled Jessica in looks and demeanor. My stomach turned every time I saw their photos on social media, each like and comment cutting deeper than the last. It was like watching a movie where the villain was thriving after destroying the protagonist's life. It felt so surreal, watching him move on so effortlessly while I was left picking up the pieces of my shattered self-esteem. But the worst part came when Jessica reached out, a week after the storm broke. She texted me, apologizing profusely, insisting she was sorry and wanted to talk. I was paralyzed with anger. How dare she think I would ever want to hear her excuses? I thought about our shared memories, the trust we had built over the years, and how quickly it had all crumbled beneath the weight of their betrayal. I ignored her message, feeling the simmering rage bubbling within me. It felt like betrayal had become a poison coursing through my veins, and I had no idea how to extract it. Days turned into weeks, and I began to see a therapist who helped me sift through the pain and confusion. "You can't control their actions, but you can control how you respond to them," she advised gently. The words resonated deep within me, igniting a flicker of defiance that had seemingly extinguished under the weight of betrayal. For the first time since everything unraveled, I felt an ember of determination kindling in my chest. The turning point came late one night while I was scrolling through social media, seeking solace in the digital noise of the outside world. I stumbled upon a photo of Ryan and his new girlfriend, faces illuminated by a golden sunset, as they shared a kiss that felt like a knife twisting in my heart. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I was done being a victim of their lies. I was done wallowing in a pit of despair. It was time for me to reclaim my power. I thought back to everything. A flood of memories washed over me, filled with his sweet words and her laughter, and I felt this burning need for justice. They thought they could shatter me, but they had underestimated my resolve. That night, I realized I could turn this pain into something greater. Instead of allowing betrayal to break me, I could let it fuel my fire. I spent the next few days channeling all that rage and hurt into a plan. I harnessed my skills as a graphic designer, creating a series of illustrations that reflected the turbulent emotions I had buried for too long. Each design became a cathartic outlet, a way for me to express the hurt, the betrayal, and ultimately, the empowerment I was beginning to feel. With every stroke of my pen, I felt lighter. I envisioned a series of art pieces that would encapsulate my experience, but more importantly, I envisioned a way to turn the narrative around. But my plan didn't stop at art. I devised a strategy that would intertwine my designs with a public reveal, an art exhibition titled Behind the Masks. I decided to showcase my journey through these illustrations, from the joyful highs to the devastating lows, as a way of reclaiming the narrative they had stolen from me. I would let the world see how they had hurt me, but also how I had risen from the ashes of that pain. In the weeks leading up to the event, I transformed my apartment into a makeshift studio, working late into the night. I poured every ounce of my heartbreak into those pieces. I designed graphics that represented the duplicity of love and friendship, depicting broken hearts with strings attached, and vibrant colors contrasting the darkness that had pervaded my life. My artwork became my armor.
You know that feeling when you're trapped in a nightmare, yet every morning, you wake up to find it was just a dream, and the world feels normal again? That's how my life felt for the last 2 years, like a waking nightmare where I was both the prisoner and the spectator. The routine of scrolling through my phone, listening to friends laugh, sharing stories over coffee, all felt like empty gestures, a facade I wore like a tight-fitting mask while chaos brewed beneath. It was in the heart of our small town, the kind where everyone knows everyone, that my life took a sharp turn into darkness. I was just a regular girl, Emma, 25, a freelance graphic designer, addicted to the smell of fresh paint and the thrill of creating something beautiful. My days were filled with colors, textures, and my beloved cat, Whiskers, who seemed to sense the weight of my heart even before I did. But all of that changed the moment Lily stepped back into my life. Lily, my childhood best friend turned trusted confidant turned treacherous foil, was nothing short of a tornado. She swept in with her whirlwind charm, her laughter echoing like music, intoxicating and contagious. She had a way of lighting up a room, drawing people into her orbit as if she held the sun in her hands. For years, I stood by her side, our bond seemingly unbreakable, until I learned that loyalty, in her eyes, was a mere stepping stone on her path to success. It began quietly, whispers in the shadows of our friendship, hidden glances, casual lies. I brushed them off, convinced I was paranoid. She would never do that to me, I thought, clinging to the memories of our carefree youth, tossing our hair back as we danced in the rain, dreaming of futures filled with endless possibilities. But every smile she wore began to feel like a mask, and every compliment she offered dripped with insincerity. The day my world shattered was a rainy Thursday, the kind where the sky weeps for the lost. I was hunched over my laptop, the sound of rain pattering against the window blending with the soft hum of my favorite playlist. A message slid onto my screen, unsuspecting, from a mutual friend. "Did you hear what Lily did?" In that moment, the air thickened, suffocating me as I read the words again and again, each syllable carving deeper into my gut. Betrayal. Unforgivable betrayal. She had taken my designs, my ideas, everything I'd poured my heart into, and claimed them as her own. In a moment, the laughter faded, the colors dulled, and the world I had known twisted into something sinister. The betrayal stung, yes, but it was the realization of her true nature that felt like a knife twisting in my back. She thought she had me. But I was more than just the girl she toyed with, I was a storm waiting to break free. Now, I sit here, ready to embrace the tempest within me. I want you to know that revenge doesn't always mean fire and fury. Sometimes, it's the silent, calculated precision of a mind that has awakened. The clock is ticking, and change is coming. What she's about to find out is that I've been watching, waiting for my moment to strike back. It's time to show her that she never really knew me at all. The days following that fateful Thursday morphed into a blur of disbelief and devastation. I felt like a ghost, floating through life, unseen, unheard. I remember the conversations I had with myself, the argument playing out in my mind like an unending loop. How could she? My heart raced, pumping indignation through my veins. I replayed every interaction we'd shared, seeking clues hidden in her laughter, signs of the duplicity lurking beneath her charming facade. But all I could see was the girl I had loved like a sister, the one who'd confided her dreams to me, who had promised to stand by my side no matter what. Maybe I misunderstood, I would whisper to Whiskers, cradling him in my arms as if he could mend my broken heart. This can't be real. But reality has a way of crashing in, hard and unyielding. She didn't just steal my designs, she stole my trust, my self-esteem, and my perception of who I was. As the days wore on, I felt my anger morph into something darker. The more I thought about it, the more clarity emerged. She thrived on the chaos she created. I couldn't shake the image of her reveling in her success, filled with glee as she presented my work to our friends, smiling as if she had birthed those ideas herself. I envisioned those moments, her eyes sparkling with excitement, the way she laughed, her voice bubbling over with triumph at the very expense of my heartbreak. Why didn't I see it? I cried out one night, my voice cracking as I scrolled through her social media posts, each one a reminder of what she had done. Her glowing self-portraits, her exaggerated captions celebrating her newfound fame in the design world, all built on the back of my labor. It felt like I was drowning in a sea of betrayal, gasping for air, yet suffocated by the weight of her deception. I began to dissect the timeline of our friendship. The moments I had thought were genuine were now tainted. I could almost hear her voice ringing in my ears, "You're so talented, Emma. You deserve to be recognized." How ironic, now that I knew she had been working behind my back all along. The thought of her feigning support, all while plotting my professional demise, ignited a fire in me. How dare she underestimate me? It was at that moment of despair that clarity struck like lightning. I realized I couldn't allow this betrayal to define me. I was not just a victim, I was a creator, an architect of my own fate. If she thought she had me cornered, I would show her just how wrong she was. So, I hatched a plan. An intricate tapestry woven with threads of strategy and patience. I would reclaim my power, brick by brick. My first step was to gather evidence. I meticulously documented every design I had created, every email that confirmed my authorship, every conversation that highlighted my ideas. I became a detective in my own story, lurking in the shadows of my former life, collecting the pieces that would serve as my armor in the war to come. The anger transformed into a cool, calculated resolve. I envisioned confronting her, the way the balance of power would shift as I laid out my evidence. The thought of her face going pale, her charming smile fading into confusion and fear sent a thrill down my spine. She thinks she's invincible, untouchable. But she doesn't realize that the person she betrayed has been watching, preparing for this moment as the days turned into weeks. The plan that once flickered like a spark began to flame into something tangible. Yet, everything began to unravel in ways I never expected, intensifying the emotional turmoil that coursed through my veins. My world felt like a ticking time bomb, and every interaction with Lily would send shockwaves through my chest, reminding me of her betrayal. I remember one afternoon, walking into our usual coffee shop, the familiar scent of freshly brewed espresso wrapping around me like a warm embrace. My heart raced as I approached the counter, scanning the room for her. There she was, seated at our corner table, surrounded by a group of admirers, each word she spoke blossoming into laughter as they leaned closer, drawn to her magnetic charm. I felt the heat rise within me, churning with a mix of anger and humiliation. This was our place, I thought bitterly. But now, it felt like a stage, and she was its star, basking in the spotlight of my former warmth. As I turned to leave, I heard her voice, laced with false sweetness, "Emma. Come join us." I hesitated, my pulse quickening. She's trying to bait me. The very thought sent chills down my spine. I could sense the amusement in the way she called my name, her friend's curious eyes darting back and forth as if anticipating a showdown. But I held my ground, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes, muttering something about having plans. As I stepped outside, each breath felt like jagged glass in my throat, rough and unforgiving. Those small moments became my daily struggle. Each time I ran into her, either at social gatherings or simply passing by on the street, it felt like a reminder of my defeat. She wore her newfound success like a crown, flaunting it with a carelessness that stung. The isolation crept in. Friends began to distance themselves, torn between loyalty to me and the allure of her charm. "You guys should just work it out," they'd say, as if they couldn't see the chasm of betrayal that had formed between us. I felt their dismissive words ricochet through my mind as if I were the one being unreasonable. One evening, I received a text from Lisa, one of our mutual friends. "I didn't want to say anything, but I was at this event last night where Lily presented her designs, and she mentioned you in passing. She said you were just a stepping stone in her journey." I stared at my phone in disbelief, the words blurring as tears threatened to spill. It was as if every ounce of dignity I had left was stripped away, leaving me exposed and vulnerable. I thought I was stronger than this, I berated myself, but the humiliation felt like a shackle, binding me to my pain. I couldn't escape the feeling of being isolated, of being betrayed not only by her but by the people I once called friends, who failed to recognize the gravity of her actions. The more they celebrated her, the more I felt like a ghost, haunting the edges of a life that no longer welcomed me. The weight of it all became unbearable. My art, once my sanctuary, turned into a battleground. I'd sit at my desk for hours, staring blankly at the canvas, my creativity stifled by a thick fog of resentment and despair. I could hear her voice echoing in my mind, taunting me. "Look at you now, Emma. You're nothing without me." I was losing trust, and it was a quiet night, the kind where the world felt shrouded in a blanket of stillness, and the only sound was the rhythmic pitter-patter of rain against my window, a natural lullaby that usually lulled my tortured mind to a place of solace. But that night, it sat heavy in my chest, too loud, too insistent. I had been scrolling through social media yet again, staring numbly at another one of Lily's posts, glorifying her latest triumph, her smile as bright as the neon lights that illuminated her carefully curated life. She had just been featured in an article spotlighting young designers to watch, and I felt the familiar pang of hurt flare up as I read the words. Innovative and bold, they referred to her, and I couldn't help but think of the countless hours I spent brainstorming and drafting designs she would ultimately claim as her own. I turned off my phone, tossing it aside as if it were a toxic object, and tried to breathe through the knot forming in my stomach. But the darkness loomed, suffocating me with a heavy blanket of rage and humiliation. Why can't I just move on? I asked myself, the question feeling like a cruel taunt echoing back at me. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just that I wanted to move on, I wanted justice. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, the pain she inflicted on me. That was when the final straw shattered my fragile resolve. It was late, and I found myself curled up on the couch with Whiskers purring softly beside me. The television flickered in the background, a mindless show that I couldn't fully focus on. Suddenly, there was a knock at my door, unexpected and jarring. I glanced at the clock, it was nearly 10. I opened it to find Lisa standing there, her expression serious and urgent. "Emma, we need to talk. It's about Lily." My heart raced, anticipation and dread mixing into an intoxicating cocktail of emotions. "What's happened?" I asked, ushering her in and closing the door behind us. As she spoke, I felt the walls of my reality begin to crumble, her words steady but heavy. "I just got off the phone with a mutual friend who works at the magazine. Apparently, Lily has been spreading lies about you to anyone who will listen. She's claiming that you were never a significant part of her creative process, that you were merely a helper, always in her shadow. She's trying to erase you from the story of her success." I could feel my stomach drop, like I had been punched hard in the gut. She's really doing it, I thought. She was continuing to rewrite our history, consolidating her power by poisoning the minds of those who had once loved me too. In that moment, all the hurt, the confusion, and the betrayal coalesced into a single, crystalline thought: this has gone too far. I looked at Lisa, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and resolve. I can't just let her do this to me. I need to show her that I'm not the weak link she thinks I am. Lisa's eyes widened, and she reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly. "What are you planning?" I could feel the shift within me. Something had awakened. The fear that had plagued me for months faded as clarity took its place. No more playing the victim. No more letting her define my narrative. The storm brewing inside me wasn't just a passing squall, it was a full. I sat there, heart pounding, the storm within me crashing against the walls of my mind as my thoughts coalesced into an intricate plan. I needed to be methodical, careful. Revenge is a dish best served cold, and I was determined to make it a masterpiece. The very first step. Gather my evidence, not just for vindication, but to expose the truth in a way that would reverberate throughout our small town. 1. Collect evidence. I went into detective mode, compiling every email, text message, and sketch that proved my contributions to our projects. I created a digital portfolio that showcased my original designs, complete with timestamps and the context behind each creation. I wanted to create an undeniable narrative of my work, one that she could not twist or deny. Every piece would serve as a testament to the truth, my truth. 2. Enlist allies. I reached out to a few trusted friends who had been with us since the beginning of our friendship. I shared everything with them, emphasizing the importance of their support. I needed them to remember the moments when I'd shared my ideas and designs before Lily ever had a chance to claim them. By reminding them of our shared past, I could turn them into my witnesses, people who would stand by my side when the time came to confront her. 3. Study Lily's moves. It was crucial to understand Lily's routines, her social circles, and how she presented herself to the world. I began attending the same events she did, lurking in the background, observing how she interacted with others and the narratives she spun. With each passing day, I took notes. The more I understood her strategies, the better positioned I would be to dismantle them. Knowledge is power, after all. 4. Create a counter-narrative. Inspired by the materials I collected, I started to craft my own narrative. I began writing a blog, one that highlighted the importance of originality in art and the value of collaboration. I framed it loosely around my experiences of betrayal in the creative world, embedding subtle references to my journey with Lily. My blog would start getting traction, creating a community of supporters who resonated with my story. 5. The art show reveal. The pièce de résistance of my plan was the idea of hosting an art show. I reached out to a local gallery and booked a date, planning to unveil my collection. But this show wouldn't just be an exhibition of my work, it would be the stage for my revenge. I decided to release a limited edition of prints that illustrated the designs she had stolen, each one meticulously crafted to tell my story, from conceptual sketches to final pieces, spotlighting my creativity and hard work. 6. Public announcement. I planned the moment of revelation carefully. The night of my art show would coincide with the reveal of Lily's next big project launch, which I had learned through the grapevine. As she basked in her glory, I would make my entrance, boldly announcing my collection while subtly highlighting the designs Lily had stolen. Through a speech woven with poignant insights, I would ensure that everyone present understood the truth. I envisioned the shift in the room when the audience connected the dots, her laughter fading as whispers erupted in disbelief around us. 7. Prepare for backlash. I knew that Lily wouldn't take this lying down. I braced myself for her attempts to discredit me or to flip the narrative. I prepped myself for confrontations, collecting testimonies from friends who witnessed her betrayal. I would be ready to counter any lies with facts. I also secured a short video the night of the art show had arrived, and the energy thrummed through the air like an electric current, crackling with anticipation. I stood backstage, my heart racing as I peered through the curtains at the crowd filling the gallery. Friends, acquaintances, and even strangers poured in, all there to witness the unveiling of my collection. But amidst them, I was acutely aware of one looming presence, Lily. She had been buzzing about the space, her laugh echoing like a siren call, as she flaunted her own designs that had been birthed from my stolen ideas. I could almost sense the magnetic shift in the room as she entered. Her confidence radiated like a beacon, drawing people closer, eager to drink from her well of charm. I swallowed hard, forcing down the tidal wave of nausea that threatened to engulf me. She thought she had me. But tonight, I would reclaim my narrative. The moment I stepped out onto the stage, the audience's chatter died down, eyes locking onto me as if I were the sun breaking through a cloudy sky. I took a deep breath, feeling every heartbeat reverberate through me. The spotlight was bright, but I welcomed it. The warmth that had once terrified me now felt like a cloak of power. "Welcome, everyone," I began, my voice steady, cutting through the silence. "Tonight, I'm excited to share not just my art, but also a story. A story about creativity, trust, and the importance of authenticity." I could see Lily in the crowd, her smile faltering as she registered the shift in my tone. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. "Good." With every word, I felt my resolve harden. I unveiled my collection piece by piece, each design a brushstroke of my truth. "These prints represent not just my artistic vision but my journey through betrayal," I declared, gesturing to the first piece, a vibrant explosion of colors that embodied my pain and resilience. "These are the designs that once belonged to me, the ideas that were stolen and repurposed as someone else's innovative triumph." Gasps rippled through the audience as they turned to look at Lily, who stood frozen, the blood draining from her face. I could feel my pulse quicken, the adrenaline coursing through my veins, urging me on. This was it, the moment of poetic justice. "The very foundation of artistry is rooted in honesty," I continued, my voice unwavering as I pointed to the next piece, an intricate sketch that mirrored my despair. "When you betray that honesty, you not only steal a person's work, you strip them of their identity." The tension in the room thickened, a palpable buzz of disbelief hanging in the air. I reveled in it, every gasp, every murmur. I had the audience, and I knew it. They were hungry for the truth, just as I had been when I first learned of my betrayal. I glanced at Lily, whose eyes were wide, darting from me to the crowd, panic etched across her features. "The designs you've admired tonight come with a backstory, a truth that many don't know," I continued, my gaze locking onto hers. "This was never just a fairy tale of friendship. It was a battlefield of deceit." With a flip of the switch, I projected a slideshow behind me, a digital timeline of our friendship juxtaposed against the designs she had claimed as her own. Emails, sketches, and candid photographs scrolled across the screen, evidence that illuminated the dark corners of our past. Murmurs grew louder, confusion morphed the air and the gallery crackled with tension, every gasp and murmur mingling together into a dissonant symphony. As the images flickered across the screen, I felt a rush of satisfaction wash over me, like the tide turning after a long storm. I glanced at Lily, whose face had transformed from shock to fury, her carefully curated facade cracking and crumbling as the truth unfolded before her like an open wound. In that moment, I had never felt more alive. I had reclaimed my narrative, exposing her lies like a bright light piercing through the darkness. The audience, once captivated by her charm, now turned their bewildered gazes towards her. I reveled in the look of disbelief written across their faces, a look that mirrored the devastation I had felt for months. I could see whispers rising, questions weaving through the crowd like a chain reaction, and I knew the tide had shifted irreversibly. As the presentation concluded, I stepped down from the stage, my heart racing with exhilaration while my mind buzzed with disbelief at what I had just accomplished. Friends swarmed around me, offering their congratulations and support, their voices a harmonic echo of what I had lost and what I was starting to reclaim. Lisa squeezed my arm, her eyes gleaming with pride as she whispered, "You did it, Emma. You showed her." But amidst the applause and the newfound warmth of my friends, I felt a chill creep up my spine. As I turned to look for Lily, I caught sight of her retreating figure, swallowed by the crowd, her expression a tempest of rage and humiliation. For a moment, the satisfaction of my victory dimmed. I had laid bare the truth, but what awaited her outside the gallery? What would become of her when the echoes of my revelations faded? The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind. My art had gained unexpected recognition, each piece I showcased becoming a testament to resilience and power. My blog garnered traction, resonating with those who had felt the sting of betrayal and the weight of stolen dreams. People reached out, eager to share their stories, inspired by my strength to confront my past. I had found my voice again, and it felt intoxicating, like a new dawn breaking over a once dark landscape. Yet, as I stood in my studio, surrounded by the colors I had poured my soul into, I couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that lingered. I had avenged myself, I had exposed the truth, but with it came an unexpected weight. I realized that revenge, while cathartic, did not heal the wounds that had been inflicted upon me. The thrill of the moment had masked the deeper scars that remained, scars that would take time, patience, and self-love to heal. One evening, I was deep in thought, my paintbrush hovering over a canvas, when my phone buzzed with a message. It was a screenshot of a post Lily had made, a public statement, brimming with indignation and victimhood. "This is not the end," she declared, framing herself as the wronged artist, one whose work had been misrepresented by someone she once called a friend. Her words dripped with manipulation, and in that moment, I felt a stab of frustration mixed with pity. She still doesn't get it, I thought, recognizing the cycle of blame she was attempting to perpetuate. I had thought that exposing her would bring clarity, but instead, it only revealed the depths of her delusion. Days turned to weeks, and whispers in our small town began to shift. The narrative of betrayal became a cautionary tale of